Thank you so much, Apollos. First of all, my opponent says we fail to appreciate the context in which the Shema was born. But I think the greater point and the question to ask yourselves is, so are the Jews Trinitarian?
No, it is absolutely not. I made this clear over several emails that high Christology and the Trinity are not the same thing. All legitimate New Testament scholars understand this, Carlos. You unqualified ignoramus. They get that Jesus is presented as divine, a high Christology without a Trinity in the New Testament. You have employed a phony deception, a foolish and dismissive approach. So as you all know, I recently went on Derek's channel to deliver my first live debate, and while it wasn't necessarily perceived to be the obvious crushing victory I and many of my other colleagues had expected, there were many who did seem to be receptive of whatever argumentation I could get past Carlos' deception. I decided to do this review so that not only I could learn a thing or two for debating next time, but so you guys can understand the direction I wanted to take this. So let's get to it. Now, long before we got in contact with any scholars or opponents, it was predetermined that this debate was going to center on low and high Christology. I made it abundantly clear several times, in several messages, in several email exchanges, and several advertisements that a debate on the Trinity was outside the scope of what I was arguing, and that the debate would center around the understanding of Jesus to be God in some sense. That is to say, worship, or whatever you want to call soteriological reverence, leads to salvation because Christians worship the triadic Godhead alone. Whether worship is understood to mean something else or not, the basic idea was that the identity of Jesus was going to be a central issue for how someone was going to be saved.
Bitch, please.
Nonetheless, my opponent, for better or for worse, didn't get the memo. Perhaps I should have been more clear in hindsight, but he should have understood from several, and I mean several exchanges, that any attack or debating on the Trinity was an admission of doing a deliberate red herring. But I can't help but wonder, if we exchanged our openings, if my opponent ever bothered to take a look at what I said versus rehash the same old arguments after we traded our opening statements. Why would he think that we were debating an issue on the Trinity, leading to many of the audience members confused on what exactly the debate was about? Carlos's questions were directed several times about the Trinity. He has even the inconceivably pathetic misconception that the Trinity and Unitarianism are the only two options in Christology.
But I think the greater point and the question to ask yourselves is, so are the Jews Trinitarian? 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 Are the Jews Trinitarian?
Bitch, please. No, 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 no. Oh, he tried it.
Get out of here. This, I'm afraid, is simply not the case. I've made great pains and gone out of my way in my opening presentation to demonstrate that this is a horrible misconception. Instead of believing in three persons and one being as part of the Godhead, oneness Pentecostals believe that the Father, Son, and Spirit are not persons, but manifestations of God as absolutely one. Adoptionism reconciles post-exilic monotheism with the idea that God adopted Jesus as a second God. Sabellianism was a precursor to the Trinity, not quite so in another sense. Already we see that these are, albeit non-trinitarian, still exalted in high Christologies that are consistent with the creedal affirmation that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. I created numerous slides that wanted to talk about the historical defense of high Christology.
For the one God of Israel.
Well, as I've stated in this debate is not about the Trinity, but it is rather about whether we should treat Jesus as equal with God, regardless of the ontology, or like whether it's absolutely one, or like this Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are just manifestations of the one, like oneness Pentecostals believe.
Let's.
But my opponent wanted to assume biblical inerrancy since our Bibles only go up to 150 Psalms because God said so. You can blame him for not taking the debate in the direction that I would have liked it to. In any case, this is the glaring problem of the debate. We were talking past one another, had several misconceptions about what our arguments were going to be about. Carlos is even going all out in Derek's and even my comment sections, my annoyance of which has given me the energy to create an annihilatory accusation of deception. Every time I wanted to talk about critical history, Carlos wanted to talk theology, and while I don't see the two as being diametrically opposed, it was made clear to me we were supposed to be debating the former than the latter. So there you have it, Carlos. I hereby publicly go on the record accusing you of mishandling this debate. Me and some others will go live to discredit your nonsense, and hopefully this will be a lesson for you to be more honest in your exchanges and respect the academic platforms thereof. You're lucky that your embarrassment wasn't in front of a live audience. Peace.